What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I got a couple things I kind of wanted to talk about. One of which is, embodying the desired state as it's already fulfilled. It's one of the core principles of like Neville Goddard's teachings and the law of assumption, but I think it bears repeating, especially if people are unfamiliar with that, and looking at these different desires as they emerge, and not to sit there and judge yourself and, criticize yourself or not feel worthy or feel guilty. Start letting all that shit go, because that's part of the stories that the old man's telling you, which is no longer who you are. It's like, I was listening to a comedian, and he was making fun of people, and like comedians do, but like for some reason something he said kind of triggered me, and I wouldn't say like I took offense to it, but it felt like he made a comment that for some reason I had made this part of my identity, and I got triggered. I got kind of like, well, how dare he? But then it was like, well, why am I even associating with my identity? Because that's not who I am anyway. And all of a sudden it went from like this negative experience to like a positive, because it was a limiting belief that was all of a sudden just uncovered. Looking at everything that's happening as being deliberate, on purpose, and perfectly playing out really takes a lot of the stress and the the what ifs and worst case scenarios out of things, because you realize that you are part of the consciousness of God. Part of the connectedness of all things is flowing in and through you, that nothing is random. It's all part of this evolution of consciousness, and ultimately expressing more and more states of heaven on earth. And people can disagree with that. I could care less what people think. Most of the time people just want to argue with you because they enjoy the hell that they live in, and it's like, well, then continue to suffer then. It makes no difference to me. I don't feel guilty for that anymore. There's a time where I used to, and it's like, oh my god, I can't feel good because look at all these suffering people around me, until you start to realize that it's all self-inflicted. And then it's like, well, then sit in your little pity party then. It's like, just don't bring it to me. But the problem is, like, a lot of people that are into that, they need that external validation because they aren't tapping that inwardly. And so it's like they need you to validate them instead of them validating their own self with God. It's all spiritual, and it's all, I don't feel bad for people anymore. I used to, but that's not anymore. Try to drop little nuggets of things for people that actually care, and that are trying to move up the vertical dimension of reality, and experience more and more levels of more higher levels, more love levels, which ultimately is an easy way to say levels of consciousness that feel good, that don't have the suffering attached to them. And it almost becomes insane to continuously just suffer, because the people that love to just like, oh, there's something noble about it, and they try to convince you of that, they're, it's like, you don't if you wanted that, then why are you bitching? Why do you care what the fuck I do then? The only reason you care is because it's showing you something that you're not. You're seeing something in the mirror of reality that's triggering. And one of the things that I like to do, which I've kind of gotten more involved in, is this concept of like, what would it feel like to fill in the blank? Because the old man is always chasing the hamster wheel out here. It's like, oh, more of these milestones will make me happy. Oh, more stuff's gonna make me happy. Oh, more people and more obligations, responsibilities, and shit to move around out here. That will have an inverse reaction, and I'll feel it internally. And that's like, yeah, there's like a sense of satisfaction when you complete a job or you complete something, but the happiness that comes first. That comes from your relationship with God, and until you realize that, you're gonna sit there spinning out. But the more that you're able to connect with God, or with love is another way to describe that, and not fear, which is what the old man connects with constantly, fear. Start to put on, what would it feel like if I was free? What would it feel like if I was abundant? What would it feel like if I was desired by, what would I feel like? And start to think from that. Don't just think of it, think from it. Totally put it on like you're an actor or something. It's like totally put on this new identity, this new persona. And you will start to see that start to mirror out into reality in God's timing as these things start to manifest, really as you believe the promises of God. if you believe the promises of God, and that God takes pleasure in prospering you, is like you don't have to beg and plead with this external force, this whatever story you're telling yourself about. But as you embody that, God creates that physical reality for you. So it's like as you put on abundance and prosperity inwardly, that's who you are. God will reward you openly by physical means. God will become that and give it to you. And God's the rewarder of those that diligently seek. And so for the ones that aren't, really practicing, and really giving a fuck about their identity, who they are in Christ, that they get what they get. It's like you can't continuously limit your own self because people choose to go to hell. And then it's like, oh, well, that's very cold. That's a very cold, thing to say. And it's like, heaven and hell is a right now thing. So, where people are at, it's like they can choose to embody anything they want. They can choose that, whether or not they do. I mean, you can, I don't even try to impart my will on people. It's like if you want to believe that you're in a scary death, situation, it's like do it. Then I don't care. The only time I really care is if someone asks me. If someone asks, it's like, oh, this state sucks, and then maybe not in those specifics, but if they're like bitching about, the state that they're in, maybe they're unemployed, they got fired or something. Start seeing them in a different state of like being, oh, they're gainfully employed, they're successful. That state is no longer who they are. If you can catch that drift, but really starting to unplug more and more so each day from just the narratives of the world, because I find them so triggering and unnecessarily triggering, especially when you realize how easy the law of assumption really is, how easy God has made this. Is where you feel, what would it feel like to be in heaven right now? What would it feel like to ascend in consciousness right now? What would it feel like to be free? What would it feel like if you didn't have to worry ever again? And just allow that energy to start to manifest inside of you. And the more you're able to hold on to that state, God will reward that openly. And it's like, you start to suffer, you start spinning out in your mind with the old man beliefs of separation and the fear that's associated with that. There's really only one energy though, and it's not a respecter of persons. It's crazy how true the Bible really is, because whether you want to feel scarce or abundant, God doesn't care. You want to be scarce, be scarce. You want to be abundant, here's abundance. It's all your assumption of yourself being pushed out. If you look though at what's going on in your 3D, in the shadow world, as just data, it's like, oh well, I keep getting these patterns of like maybe some undesirable outcome. Well, looking at that and then making the change inwardly first of like, oh well, this is because I think that I'm clumsy. Just these stories you tell yourself. Oh, it's like, oh, I've always been clumsy, and it's like, no, start telling yourself a new story and just see what happens. Sometimes you can get into like, oh well, if this is true, then I'm gonna just go balls deep in it, and it's like you can, but there's gonna be a shitload of resistance that starts to pop up though too. So you might start small. Start with what you can, basically look at your life as it is, because that's about what you can steward without being in resistant states. But just take what you have and start to grow it. Realize that everything that's happening in the present moment is from past beliefs, assumptions, playing out as theater in the present moment. It's always circling back. You're always reaping what you sowed. And so start to embody these new states, start planting new seeds, and then walking as if it's already a done deal, and you've already achieved the emotional state that you're trying to achieve from it anyway. That's what you connect with in the present moment, because that's the only thing you can do in the present moment is just feel and embody higher and higher states of consciousness now. It's not the as you seek the kingdom of God, all things will, start to be added to you. So it's like, as you seek that first and connect with that energy of like, oh, if I was in heaven, what do I want to do with my eternal life? What kind of life would I want to have? And start putting those states of consciousness on, because the alternative is you're already telling yourself the opposite. You're telling yourself negative stories more and suffering as a result. When you realize that you're basically living in your own mind, and that the outer world is maybe one or two things that are triggering for like 5 or 10 seconds, but then you have these stories that you tell yourself, and these feelings and these emotions of fear and suffering because of it. And it's like a lot of it just is because your beliefs that things are the way they are, that are totally unfounded beliefs. But until you make the choice to either let them go, and I can hear people now, it's like, well, Mike, well, there's hey, look around you, look at this, look at the pandemic and all these authoritative means and, the propaganda and this and that's. Like, that's not who you are, for one. For two, why do you think that was going to affect you? That only affects you if you believe it does. There's at least two separate realities, if not infinite. I believe there's infinite amount of realities happening simultaneously right now, and that you can test that for yourself and experience that to be a true statement. But the problem is, you have this binary situation, which is not real. It's a false binary. But with that, you're either elevating or descending. It's not linear where it's like, oh, from past to present to future. It's all happening now. And it's like the only thing that's really happening is where your vibration is. Are you vibing in states of love, which is ultimately just the absence of fear, and letting your desires, when they come to you, embody that you are already that. Because as you do, you will get that experience rewarded to you. God will become that, and that will be what your experience is, and rewards you, and then you'll experience it. And this is coming from a person that does this all the time. It's like normal for me to think this way, and it's normal because it plays out just like that. It's like I don't have shit to really worry about. It's like, everything. I feel so blessed all the time that you just want to share it with others, because it's like I didn't do something special that put me as like this unique zone. It's like you can do it too. It's literally for everybody. It's the gift of God. Yeah, God is love. And meanwhile, you have a big percentage of the population at the moment. Not some, I don't want to put that out there like that, but like my physical reality is so disconnected from like the national narrative that it's almost ridiculous to listen to the national narrative, because it's like you have people in maybe New York or LA that want to live, and I don't even believe that's real. I believe it's being put in your face, but I don't think that's boots on the ground what it's like. But like you have these impressions, you have these stories of like New York and LA, and some of these left wing areas just like kind of falling into like a devolved state of consciousness where it's basically manifesting satanic shit, where it's just upside down and backwards and just filled with fear. That's the biggest way to tell, is just the amount of fear that the population's in. And with that, it makes it a little bit easier to have compassion when you realize that people are just being hysterical and really operating with about the intelligence of a 5-year-old when they're just lost in panic and fear, and are willing to give themselves over just to let them, have that feeling go away. And a lot of that, there was like times in my life where I wouldn't have listened to any of this shit. It's like, but until you walk through it and experience that for yourself, then it becomes more and more obvious. Like, for me, it's like so obvious that the inner beliefs about your identity, especially when you start to shift that to your identity in Christ, who you actually are, and realizing that the kingdom of God is within, that Jesus is within you, that the Holy Spirit's inside of you. It makes you, and it's all in the Bible. I encourage you to read the Bible for yourself, or in a group, whatever. But the Spirit teaches you what these things mean. A lot of these things I've never heard in a church before, even though it's biblically just right there. But until you kind of come out the other side, where you see how inverted the world is, then it starts making more sense. But even that, not to sit there and judge it, because it is functioning perfectly. And as fucked up as that might be to hear, because then all of a sudden you get triggered about all the perceived injustices of the world, people do the shit to themselves. People in the truth community are, it's crazy the binaries that start to happen when you don't have your faith in God. and it becomes obvious, for the people that are maybe not really practicing their faith or growing their faith and falling into these fear cycles. It's because you're not believing God. You're not believing what God said is real, and then you're suffering as a result of it. And there's only so far you get my sympathy, before it's just like, that's your problem. You did that to you, and it's like and I do it to me too. And it's like, I catch myself when I get triggered, which it happens frequently. Not to sit there like I'm some like, whatever you want to call that. It's just like, I got to deal with these things too, and I catch it faster and faster though, and go, hey, I'm telling myself a story. It's like, oh, here's guilt. I can choose to tell myself I'm innocent. I don't need to sit here and just tell myself how guilty I am, even though I haven't done anything. It's the same thing of like fear and everything else. It's like, when you start believing the promises of God are true, and you hold that as part of your identity, and that God's within you, that anything that you ask for, that you believe that it's yours, you will get it. So you embody the feeling of being that blessed. You embody these states now. And then it just plays out through the series of events like perfectly. It's crazy, but it happens. I was like thinking about, like this shirt, for example, is like, it's a new to me shirt, but like, I was just, I got so much paint and shit from my handyman business on my shirts that, just paint, drywall mud, I just oil, I'm like the last, spot when it comes to clothes. And like, I just was thinking about, oh, I need to get some new clothes. Next thing you know, my wife comes home with a bag of clothes. It's like, oh, I got you a bunch of new clothes. Didn't even say it to her. It's like, didn't even mention one time. And that happens so frequently that's just normal, for me. Or it's like, you're thinking about, oh, it'd be awesome to work for that customer again, and they call a day or two later. I start seeing how these non-resistant thoughts, how fast they manifest into real-world situations. But, it's not like, oh, if I only had this, then I can feel a certain way. It's like, no, what would it feel like instead of like feeling shame or guilt or fear, or anger or any of these kind of states that just imply separation? How would it feel to realize the truth that God and I are connected? We're one. We're there's all these biblical things to start putting on, and as you do, you start to see how things play out like perfectly, and it's like you start seeing the things that are happening in the world is just like, well, hopefully the self-inflicted suffering that these people are doing to themselves, forces them to wake up, because it's like, how far into hell do you need to go before you realize that, hey, I don't want to be here. This sucks, and I think that threshold is different for everybody. I get it with like the truth community, where it's just like, how long are you gonna keep living in with this? It's like you can point your finger at the people afraid of getting sickness and dying, but then you're afraid too of getting the jab and dying, being forced into that. It's just like, here's an idea: stop living in fear. Realize that at the head of every government is God, not Satan. It's part of that belief that, that creates that reality for you. It's like, I hear so much almost like putting satanic shit on a pedestal from the truth community, and not Jesus or the Holy Spirit or God or spiritual practices. It's like, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? It's like, this is what you do. Seek the kingdom of God. Jesus already showed you how to do it. Listen to what Jesus said to do. This shit has been going on. This isn't new. And it's not, but, people just believe everything else, but what's clearly in your face. It's just like, whatever, but that's your choice. That's people's choices to do that. And that's not for me to judge anybody else's path, but there's a disconnect for me as a person, where it's just like, as somebody who's proved this to themselves and experiencing it at work every day, and as you face the fear, you have the drama, you overcome it, and then it's like you start walking into this ideal life that God's just given you. It's amazing, and it's for everybody. And so it's like, how do you start putting that on? is to realize you are already blessed now. Everything you ever wanted has already been given to you, and it's given to you now. It was given to you the moment you asked, Jesus to save you from this. As soon as you ask God to help, the whole thing is it's already been done. Everything's already happened, and it's like it's a process of realizing it, and it's like you realize it through the feeling. Because if you didn't realize it, you would still get the shit given to you, but there'd be a hollowness to it. I've had some people say some of the kindest things that have ever come, probably that I could ever, imagine someone to say. Someone has said that to me, and with the wrong state of mind, it's still like, oh, I don't know, I don't believe them. It's like you can't. You can't even connect with it, and it's weird maybe to say that, but it's like as somebody even through music, if like people that have like done some of the kindest things and said some of the nicest things, but then it's like you almost it's like well, whatever, I don't believe it. It's like you still aren't embodying that you made it, no matter how many people will tell you. Yeah, and so start to turn that around by what would it feel like to have made it? What would it feel like to be healthy? What would it feel like to be connected with God and not have to worry? What would it feel like to be able to be, do, or have anything? And as you become that, as you put that on, God will start reflecting that faith back to you. It's like, I feel like a big part of prayer is embodying that state of freedom now. And then your situations in life will start to mirror that inner belief. And I'm saying that from experience. I see it working all the time for me. And it's like as you change those beliefs and assumptions by just kind of just letting them go. It's like it kind of bubbles up. Maybe you start feeling anxiety or something like that, and then it's like, well, wait a second. This is only happening inside of my mind. I'm allowing this fear. I'm feeling this shit. And I can totally change the story that I'm telling myself and feel good instead. I could be feeling good, but I'm choosing to just spin out in fear. It's one of those things you have to start to put it on. You got to do it, and some of these techniques maybe are helpful, but ultimately go within and discover the techniques and things that work best for you. Faith comes by hearing, and that's one of the main reasons I do this. But then also, as you teach, you learn. And so, because we're all connected, and so part of like putting this out there in this way is like it's ultimately helpful for me too, and as we all kind of sharpen each other and just share our experiences, because so many times people feel so isolated and like, oh, because the world's so fucking crazy that talking about any type of spiritual thing it triggers the godless and the people that are just asleep and unconscious, that because it goes against their paradigm of reality, which who cares? Who cares at this point? It's like I see, and this is like, I'm evolving and everything just like anybody else, but like I see, what's going on with the vaccines and this and that. It's like, do I want anybody in my family to inject any of this shit into their bodies? No. It's like I was really happy when I got COVID. I believe I manifested it on myself. Because I wanted to get it. I wanted to just get it and get it over with and experience it, and use that experience to help others that might be suffering from it. And also to if someone wanted to anybody in my community, if they wanted to say something to me, which has never happened. Even at the height of this thing, when everybody was walking around with masks and shit on, I didn't do any of that shit, and like I had to go to like the hardware store to get materials, and a handful of times I went in with customers that were wearing masks, and I told them like this is against my beliefs to do this shit. And it's like, if you either have a problem with it or you don't, but if you don't want to work with me, I don't care, but I'm not going to sacrifice my beliefs just to make you feel better. And I feel like there's a kind of a disconnect between people accusing others of being like selfish, because they're not because the people that are slaves, especially the slaves to this narrative, are feeling like anybody that goes against it is being selfish, and they view freedom as selfish because that's what they're not. And so it's okay, if people want to say whatever, and because they can choose to be free, but that involves having to humble yourself and asking God to set you free, and that's hard for maybe people that are like into maybe atheism or a lot of the scientism. But even if you follow the science route, I mean, you can go into quantum science and see the quantum field. We're all saying a lot of the same shit with just different angles on the same thing. We're like maybe like an atheist or somebody who is really just bought into the culture, even if the culture is toxic and dysfunctional, because look around. Most of the people I know, childhoods were somewhat dysfunctional, including mine, and not to sit there and like say, oh, that's great to be dysfunctional, but realize that most people had some sort of trauma and dysfunction, and not to be so harsh with people, and and I can kind of be harsh, especially when I get kind of in this like maybe like a jailhouse mentality of like, you are not going to tell me what to fucking do. I'm not your bitch. So we can, what's next? I kind of get into that zone where I get like that, and I understand it might maybe trigger others. But look around at what's happening and realize that people are where they are. It's not for anybody to sit there and like wish death on, because we're all still connected regardless of where they're at, whether they're unconscious or not, or the conscious. It doesn't really matter, because every interaction is orchestrated, and the things that are triggering about others, a lot of times you're guilty of what they're doing, but it's easier to see it because it's triggering, and it's like, oh, but then take it, look at back at yourself, and through being able to forgive them for what they're doing, you're forgiving yourself then too, because you're also doing it. So part of this whole thing where it's just like, well, because you'll see that right now where it's like, the vaxxed, and I don't know, if this is real, but it's like, oh, well, the vaxxed people are kind of, blaming the unvaxxed people for everything, vice versa, and instead of doing that, realize, and like wishing death on them, it's just like, oh, well, if the vaxxed people don't want to, or the unvaxxed people, want to, whatever, then they'll just die. And then the vax people are saying the same thing about the unvax people are saying the same shit about the vax people, where it's like, you're injecting this shit into your body and having the side effects. It's like, hopefully you don't die. But, some people are actually wishing death on others, which is like drawing it to them because we're all connected. And it's like, I would definitely recommend not doing that, because you reap what you sow. And so there are rules to consciousness. There is an order to things, and God knows what you're thinking and feeling, because God's inside of you. And so you can talk one way, but if you're feeling that inwardly and not even expressing it, a lot of times that'll be externalized too, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And so looking at these things as they emerge, and not getting like super reactive to it, but becoming more able to look at it objectively of like, oh, well, it's just mirroring something. I'm perfectly safe because I'm in God's consciousness. I'm being reflected out the same way in a lot of ways, where it's like you see your external reality. Well, it's mirroring who you are. Well, your being is mirroring back information to God, in this kind of, I don't know how to describe it in a way that's like makes sense, but you can start to kind of feel it, what I'm saying, by experience. And so yeah, trying to really hone in the mental diet to focus on the good. I like listening to people that are come out of the truth community and have because the truth community feels so toxic, and like the thing that's toxic about it is this like staying in this loop of like helplessness and hopelessness, and the they's coming to enslave me, and I'm already enslaved because I put the they on a pedestal and I gave them my power, instead of realizing God has the power and I can be, do, or have anything. Like it's all based on the stories you're telling yourself. But the problem with like the true community is like you start spinning out, and as you believe these nightmares, you start experiencing the nightmares more and more, and it turns into the satanic Truman Show, where it's just like everybody's possessed and you're just living in a virtual hell, and as you come out that though, you start to realize that everything is possible to you, nothing is held back from you, and things are going to be so amazing, and they already are amazing, and then it's like a process of realizing how awesome this actually is, where you can embody these states and then they play out. It's like becoming lucid in a dream, and that's like your rewards. It's just like your rewards are states of high consciousness, peace, joy, love, and just not these old stories and narratives of hell, basically, and getting out of that and shaking that off, and seeing how the reflection of consciousness will play out, but not to sit there and just what would it feel like if what I'm saying is true? What would it feel like to be at total peace right now, instead of telling yourself some narrative? You gotta let that old man go, because that old is bringing that shit back to the present moment. Start letting go of these things. If your mindset is like the they as this all powerful whatever, I look at the they anymore as just being completely unconscious, and just doing the shit to themselves. It's like the ones that like plotted and scheming to enslave and dominate others are the ones that are going to be enslaved and dominated, and it's like the ones that want to do shit to others, harm others, they're going to harm themselves. It's just God's not mocked. God knows what's going on. And there, the identity of separation. This old man, basically was doing the will of Satan, basically, and the people that are in the old man unconscious thing that are suffering or inflicting suffering on others, but also on themselves, and it just compounds, and as you embody that more and more and more, you become more and more like demonically obvious, because you're suffering so much. You're just in so much fear and torment and suffering, and then you start blaming God and blaming this and blaming everything else, and then hating these fuckers over here because they got something you didn't, like you and you keep you keep spinning out and spinning out and spinning out and spinning out. You can choose to stop right now. You can choose that by asking Jesus to help you and looking towards go to the Bible, look and see how Jesus lived his life as a model. He told you have everything's laid out already. You don't have to reinvent anything. A 5-year-old can understand this. Every human being on the planet can understand this, because we're all created to understand it, and on a core level you can feel it. When you hear truth, you can feel it. It resonates with your inner man or your inner being. And a big part of like moving forward is to feed that inner being, feed it in spirit and truth. That's how God wants us to worship, is in spirit and truth. Inside, and embody these states. And you can believe what you want, but I just wanted to bring that technique. That what would it feel like to, and also again, the mental diets. Are you focusing on triggering shit that ultimately isn't feeding your soul and it's taking from you? That's the thing with the truth community, where it's just like, how long are you going to be in this satanic world that you feel like a victim and just want to die and go to some other thing. It's like you're already out of it. You keep breathing life into it by looking back and watching Babylon burn. Stop watching Babylon burn and move into the new life. Move into the new you that is abundant, that is free, that is healthy, that is whole, is complete. It's innocent. It's like all of these things that are the fruits of the Spirit. Embody those, and I think that's about it. I appreciate. I'll just give a quick update too. But the chickens, they're doing a good job laying eggs. Kind of have to mess with their nesting boxes because they're kind of hiding them in weird spots, and so I want to make sure they have like an abundant amount of options to lay their eggs, especially where it's like easy to collect them. The turkey, I think, has finally got past the point of getting picked on. He hasn't really seemed to do anything besides nothing seems to outwardly have changed. I went out there with the hose for a couple days and just like kept spraying the birds that were picking on them, and I don't know if that kind of put it on them. If like, if I attack or if I don't think it's like attacking, but it's like if I peck at the bird, I'll get sprayed, and so they just kind of stop. And so that kind of drama's over with, and so I'm happy about that. I don't want to see, even though I'm going to, in a month or two, cut the turkey's head off and eat it, and gut it and eat it. I still don't want it to get picked on in the meantime. I want it to have a good life while it's still here. And I fixed my vehicle finally. That was a fucking treat. Ended up going Friday. I had to do a power washing job, power wash his deck, and I got done a lot faster than I thought. My guy was out doing another job, and it was just me, and so it's like, well, I'm about 25 minutes away from the junkyard now, so I might as well. It got done at like 1 o'clock. I got like the whole afternoon. Went out to the junkyard, got the pulley and the bearing off the. It was basically the AC pulley and AC clutch. I thought they were kind of rubbing. I thought. I didn't know exactly what was wrong with it, but when I went to change it, I have to go through the tire to get to that pulley, and so I got the clutch off, which is basically one bolt. And then, as I pulled that off, the bearing literally just fell apart. So really happy to get that changed. And, the new, it's not new, but, it's new for the vehicle. It's not making any noise. And, it seems to be driving really nice. And now I can, drive around without having to worry about that seizing up and then, basically cooking the belt off or shredding the belt, and then, a cascade of different issues. Now I got that fixed. I got the freaking new tires on the vehicle, and I got to still get a blower motor out of the junkyard. Because that went out, and I still got a couple months before it gets cold to really mess with that. That's not a very hard thing to do either. I just didn't want to mess with it on Friday, but other than that, I got the handyman business is doing good still. My brother, he just started a business, an online business selling like cat toys and dog toys and stuff like that. So I'm hopeful to see how that evolves. His job has been getting kind of sketchy with this vaccine mandate shit. And like I told him, it's like, it's not hard to make money. It's very abundant time, because a lot of people are in a dream and not really getting shit done, and lost in narratives and spells and stuff. And so, hopefully that takes off for him so he can, live the life he wants to live and not feel like a slave or a victim or any of that kind of stuff, which he's not. He's not that. But, sometimes you get, stuck in these patterns, especially when you've been in the workforce for a long time. I haven't been in the workforce, really. I mean, I was like, doing music and a handyman business, but like working for others. I did a lot of that when I was like a teenager and like into my early 20s, but I don't know, maybe 10 years. I haven't really dealt with that a lot, so I don't really relate to a lot of that kind of struggle. Because I just wouldn't put up with it. I didn't want to live that way, and so went for just doing music, and that worked out and continues to work out. I just got my royalty check for this quarter for like TV royalties and stuff like that, and I didn't really see any new placements, but maybe next time. It's still about the same. For some reason, it's kind of exciting. You never know what's going to be on there, and hopefully continue to see that kind of progressing and evolving, along with the handyman business. It's fun to it almost feels like playing like Sim City or like a video game, especially the more that you build your faith and you realize like all things are possible. And so it's like you start to take that to the extreme, and the thing of it is, it's like you face the fear that's the resistance that's like keeping you in this little safe box. But once you realize that the fear is an illusion and it's like follows the same kind of pattern every single time, it makes it a lot easier to do what you want to do without having the fear holding you back. And so, I really want to encourage you, if you are on the fence or it's like, I feel really uneasy about taking this shit and like I just want to do something different. I mean, there's plenty of jobs, there's plenty of opportunity. It's so abundant, it's amazing. But, if you choose to just sacrifice your body for the sake of some safe little job that you don't even like anyway, it's like, you can do that too. I don't feel bad for you if you do that, and something, it didn't work out and there's suffering attached to it. But if you're doing this thing with God and focusing on spiritual things and stuff like that, it's literally anything that you ask for. I mean, it sounds so absurd, but it's not. I mean, it's literally test it for yourself and see. Check out some of Neville Goddard's teachings. He did a very good job of like tying the Bible into what he was saying, which is what sparked my interest, because I got to a point where it's like the only thing I was really paying attention to was the Bible, and like as like a source for truth. And there's so much metaphysical gravy, as like the Bears would say, the gravy of truths that's in there, that I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're applying metaphysical practices, and especially once you see them working, then it's like, well, then you start seeing all the things that Jesus did, all the miracles and stuff, and starting to understand how that happened. And so, definitely want to share that with others. And other than that, I think I'm going to bounce. So I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. I also appreciate your financial support, and just your support in general. And other than that, have a good rest of your now. What would it feel like if you were totally in bliss and peace and joy right now? Put that on, and continuously put that on, because it's only ever now. And so, with that being said, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your now, and God bless.